The phone call that ended my marriage came at 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in December. I was standing in my freight office on Sprague Avenue in Spokane, looking at a manifest for a load of cherry concentrate that needed to make it to a co-packer in Stockton by Thursday morning. Tomas was on the other side of the desk arguing with the dispatcher in Yakima about a driver's hours. The radio on the wall was playing a country song my father would have called the kind of music that makes a man wonder what he did wrong with his life. It was a normal Tuesday, 11 days before Christmas. My phone rang. Adrian, I picked up. "Hey, what's up? I'm in the middle of a manifest right now." "Wesley," her voice was flat. "I just inherited millions of dollars from Uncle Floyd." I stopped. Thomas stopped. "What did you say?" 14.7 million. The trust hit my account this morning. "Adrian, we can talk about this when I get home tonight." "Pack your things. Get out of the house. Don't be there when I bring the kids home from school. And don't ever try to see them again. You won't win that fight, Wesley, not against this much money." "Adrian, what are you doing right now? Tell me what is happening." The line went dead. I stood in my office holding a phone that was no longer connected to anything, and I understood three things at the same time. The first was that my wife of 13 years had just told me, in 90 seconds, that she had been waiting for this phone call for longer than I had ever realized. The second was that she had not called from the kitchen. She had called from somewhere quiet, somewhere private, somewhere already prepared. The third was that the divorce papers were already on the table when I got home. I knew it before I walked in the door. My name is Wesley Hargrove. Most people call me Wes. I'm 41 years old. I run a freight brokerage in Spokane, Washington, called Hargrove Freight Solutions. My partner, Tomas Vega, and I started it in 2015 with 2 used Peterbilts and $40,000 in personal savings between us. 11 years later, we have 4 trucks, 6 drivers, and a contract pipeline that put us at $1.8 million in revenue last year. It is a small operation. It pays the bills. It puts my son Cooper through 5th grade and my daughter Lily through 2nd grade, and it pays the mortgage on a 4-bedroom in North Spokane that my wife picked out in 2019. That was my life. I want to tell you about the woman who took it apart. Adrienne Whitlock was 24 years old when I met her at a wedding in Spokane in the summer of 2011. Her cousin was marrying my old friend from Lake City High School in Coeur d'Alene. She was the maid of honor. I was a groomsman. We were paired together for the reception entrance, and by the time the cake was cut, I had her phone number written on the back of a Hargrove & Sons trucking business card I had borrowed from my father's wallet on the way to the venue. She was charming. She laughed at the right things. She had grown up in Spokane Valley, gone to Eastern Washington University for 2 years, before transferring to a bookkeeping certificate program. Her father had died of a heart attack when she was 18. Her mother, June, worked at a Spokane insurance office. Her older brother, Dean, had bounced between used car lots since high school. Her Uncle Floyd, her mother's older brother, lived in a big house in the Hangman Hills area outside town and had made his money in Pacific Northwest timber and real estate, but the family didn't talk about him much. We dated for 15 months. We got married in October 2012 at a small church in Coeur d'Alene with 38 people in attendance. Floyd Whitlock came to the wedding. He shook my hand at the reception, looked me in the eye for about 6 seconds and said, "Son, you take care of her. She's going to need a man with both feet on the ground." I did not know what he meant by that. I learned what he meant 13 years later, on a Tuesday morning in December, when his money hit her bank account and she told me to get out of my own house. Cooper was born in July 2014. Lily was born in August 2017. The first 10 years of our marriage were what most people would call good. We had problems. Every marriage does. I was on the road too much in the early years. She wanted a bigger house before we could afford one. We argued about money. We argued about her, Brother Dean, who needed loans every other year and never paid them back. But we were good with the kids. We were good in the small moments. We had Sunday dinners at my parents' house in Coeur d'Alene about once a month. I thought we were a family. In August 2024, Floyd Whitlock came to visit us in Spokane. He was 78 years old. He was thin. His hands shook a little. He stayed for 3 days. He took the kids to Riverfront Park and bought them ice cream and watched them ride the carousel. The second night he was there, after Adrian and the kids had gone to bed, Floyd and I sat on my back deck drinking the bourbon he had brought with him from his collection. He looked at me for a long time before he spoke. "Wesley." "Yes, Floyd." "How is my niece doing?" I thought about it. "She's doing all right, Floyd. We have our problems like anyone else." "Wesley, how is my niece doing as a person, as a mother, as a wife? I'm not asking about her week, I'm asking about her." I sat with that. I thought about the last 6 months, about the way she had started talking to me, short, dismissive, like I was the help, about the way she had started disappearing on Saturday afternoons to go shopping, about the way she had started referring to my freight business as Wesley's little company in front of her brother Dean. "Floyd, I think she might be going through something." Floyd nodded slowly. "That's what I'm afraid of." "What do you mean?" He looked at me. His eyes in the porch light were the color of old slate. "Wesley, I have known my niece since the day she was born. She is my sister June's daughter. I love her. But she has always been a girl who measured her life against other people's lives, and she has always come up short in her own measurement, and that is a dangerous way to live. I am old, Wesley. I am not going to be around much longer. I have things to put in order. And one of the things I want to put in order is making sure that whatever I leave behind does not become a weapon in the hands of someone who has already started to lose herself." I did not understand him. I told myself he was an old man being sentimental. I told myself it was the bourbon. 16 months later, my phone rang at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning in December, and I finally understood what Floyd Whitlock had been trying to warn me about. I drove home from the office at 12:23 p.m. It is 12 minutes from the warehouse on Sprague to my house in North Spokane in normal traffic. I made it in 9. I do not remember the drive. I remember pulling into my own driveway and seeing Adrian's Lexus RX parked at an angle, like she had been in a hurry, and I remember thinking, who hurries home to wait for their husband? The answer was, someone who has been preparing. I walked through the front door. The Christmas tree was up in the front window. The kids' stockings were hung. Cooper's drawing of a Lego spaceship was still on the fridge from the previous Saturday. Everything looked exactly the way it had looked when I had left for work at 7:15 that morning. Adrienne was sitting at the kitchen table. She was wearing a sweater I had not seen before. Cream-colored, cashmere. Her hair was done. Her makeup was done. She had a coffee cup in front of her and a stack of papers on the table beside her, maybe 40 pages, bound, with a green cover sheet that said in black letters across the top, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage, State of Washington." The letterhead in the upper right corner read, "Crane and Associates." I stood in the doorway of my own kitchen. She looked at me. She smiled. It was not a real smile. It was the smile of a woman who had been rehearsing this smile in a mirror for at least a week. "Wesley, Adrienne, I would offer you coffee, but I don't think you'll be staying long." I walked over to the table. I pulled out a chair. I sat down. The petition was in front of me. She had already signed her copy. She slid the second copy across the table toward me. I read the cover sheet. I read the property division section. I read the custody proposal. Full custody to her. Supervised visitation to me on alternating Saturdays from 9 to 5, no overnights. I read the note attached at the bottom of the last page, in her handwriting. "Wesley, this is the cleanest way. Don't fight it. The lawyer says if you sign today, we can be done by January." I looked at my wife. "How long has Hollis Crane been your attorney?" She blinked. "Since when does it matter?" "How long, Adrienne?" "A few months." "How long is a few?" "Wesley, the papers are in front of you. Sign them or don't. I am taking the kids and I am moving to Bellevue with the proceeds of the trust. If you sign these today, I will allow alternating Saturdays. If you don't, my lawyer will pursue full custody on grounds of business instability and absence, and you will see them on the holidays you happen to negotiate, if any. Which would you prefer?" I picked up the pen. She had set out a black cross pen with a gold clip. She had bought it for me at our 5th anniversary in 2017. She had set out my own anniversary pen for me to sign away my children with. I signed. I signed every page she had marked. I handed the pen back to her. Good luck. She laughed. It was a short laugh. Surprised, almost. The laugh of a woman who had expected resistance and had not gotten it, and now did not know what to do with the silence. I stood up. "Don't be here when I get the kids," she said. "I mean it." "I won't be." I walked upstairs. I packed a duffel bag, 3 changes of clothes, my work boots, the photo of my dad and me on his last truck run before he retired in 2019. I took the photo of Cooper from his preschool graduation off the dresser. I took the friendship bracelet Lily had made me at summer camp 2 years ago out of the drawer where I kept it. I left everything else. I came back downstairs. Adrienne was still at the kitchen table, looking at her phone. She did not look up. I walked out the front door of my own house. I got in my truck, then I drove to Tomas Vega's house. And while I drove, I did 3 things. I called my lawyer, Maggie Holcomb. I left a voicemail. "Maggie, it's Wes. I need to see you tomorrow morning, first thing. I just signed divorce papers and I don't know if I should have. Call me back." I called my father, and I started thinking. Because Floyd Whitlock had warned me, 16 months earlier, on my own back deck, about something I had not understood. And now I was starting to wonder if Floyd had warned me on purpose. Tomas Vega answered the door in his work shirt with the freight company logo embroidered over the chest pocket. He was 43 years old. He looked at my face for 2 seconds and stepped aside. "Get in here." His wife Hannah was in the kitchen. She was 41. She was a registered nurse at Sacred Heart Medical Center. She had been Adrienne's friend for 10 years. She took one look at me and said, "What did she do?" I told her. When I was done, she walked across the kitchen, hugged me hard, and stepped back. "Wesley, I have to tell you something. I should have told you a year ago, and I didn't, and I'm sorry." "What is it?" "Adrienne has been telling me for the last 14 months that she was going to be a different person soon. She told me last August that her Uncle Floyd was sick and that things were going to change for everybody soon. I thought she was talking about a small inheritance. I did not know it was going to be this." "You should have told me, Hannah." "I know, I'm sorry. But Wesley, listen to me. If she was telling me all that 14 months ago, then she has been planning this for 14 months. The papers your wife handed you today were not drafted last week. Those papers were drafted months ago and were sitting in her lawyer's desk waiting for the day Floyd died." Tomas put a glass of bourbon in front of me, the same brand Floyd had brought to my house in August of 2024. "Wesley, you signed those papers too fast." "I know. You signed them because you were in shock." "I understand. But, buddy, you signed full custody away. We are getting that back. Tomorrow morning, you are going to Maggie Holcomb's office. Tonight, you are going to your father's house in Coeur d'Alene because Roy needs to see your face." "Tomas? You said Floyd left you a warning. You told me on the way up the steps. The thing about August 2024, the deck, the bourbon. Wesley, a 78-year-old man, does not have that conversation with his niece's husband on a back deck with a bottle of bourbon for no reason. He had a reason. Tomorrow morning, you find out what it was." I drove to Coeur d'Alene at 8:30 that night. It is 30 miles from Tomas's house in the Spokane Valley to my father's place in Coeur d'Alene, if you take I-90 east through the state line. In the dark, in December, with snow on the shoulders, it took me 45 minutes. My father was on the porch when I pulled up. Roy Hargrove is 68 years old, 6'2", gray hair. He has been cutting himself since 1987. He drove a long-haul truck for Hargrove and Sons until he retired in 2019. He was waiting on the porch with 2 glasses and the bottle. "Pop. Boy, sit down." I sat. He poured. He did not ask. He knew. "Tell me." I told him. He did not interrupt. He drank his bourbon. He let me get to the end. When I was done, he set his glass down on the rail of the porch. "Wesley, your wife just inherited $14.7 million and decided you were disposable. That tells me everything I need to know about who she always was." I did not say anything. "Boy, I am going to tell you something I never told you while you were dating that woman. I knew. You knew what? I knew she was the kind of person who would do this if she ever got the chance to do it. I knew it the day you brought her to Sunday dinner in 2011. Your mother said to me that night after the two of you left. Your mother said, "Roy, that girl is hungry for something Wesley can't give her, and the day she finds out he can't give it to her is the day she is going to leave him." Pop, I never told you because you loved her. I never told you because I thought maybe she would grow into something better. But I am going to tell you now, because the marriage is over, and you are sitting on my porch, and you need to hear it from someone. He picked up his glass. You are going to win this fight, Wesley. You know how I know? Because you didn't argue when she handed you the papers. You signed them. You handed her the pen back. You said good luck. That is what a man who is going to win does. A man who is going to lose argues. A man who is going to win drinks his bourbon and waits for the right moment. Pop, I think Floyd Whitlock left me a way to win. My father turned to look at me. What did you say? In August 2024, he came to visit. He sat on my deck. He told me he was worried about Adrian. He told me he was putting things in order. Tomorrow, I'm going to Maggie Holcomb. I think Floyd left me something. My father was quiet for a long time. Then he said very slowly, Wesley, if a 78-year-old timberman with $14.7 million sat on your back deck and warned you about his own niece, then I will tell you this for free. He didn't just leave you something. He set up a trap, and your wife just walked into it without knowing it was there. He stood up. He squeezed my shoulder. Come inside. Your mother made meatloaf. Maggie Holcomb's office was on the third floor of the old National Bank building in downtown Spokane. She had been my attorney since 2010. She was 58 years old. She wore her hair in a gray bob. She had a way of looking at you over the rim of her reading glasses that made you feel like you were either going to be saved or eviscerated. I walked into her office at 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning carrying a copy of the divorce papers. Maggie read them. For 10 minutes, she said nothing. She turned pages. She picked up a pen and made notes on a yellow legal pad. She paused on the property division section for a long time. She paused on the custody section even longer. When she finished, she set the papers down and looked at me over her glasses. Wesley, Adrian's Uncle Floyd Whitlock. When did he die? November 8th, about a month ago. How much did he leave? $14.7 million, according to her. The whole thing went to her, apparently. The whole thing? He had no other heirs? He never married. He had no children. His only sister is Adrian's mother, June. Dean, Adrian's brother, and Adrian were his only nieces and nephews. That doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Wesley, a 79-year-old timberman worth in the high eight figures with a sister he was close to, who had 2 adult children, and he left everything to one niece and nothing to his sister, nothing to his nephew, nothing to charity? That is what she said. In 2024, did Floyd Whitlock have any contact with you that struck you, at the time or in retrospect, as unusual? I told her about the bourbon on the deck. Maggie wrote on her legal pad for about 30 seconds. Then she looked up. Wesley, there is something here that doesn't add up. I need to make a phone call. I need you to go. Pick up your kids from school today after their last bell, take them to dinner, act normal, and bring them home before Adrian knows they were missing. Cooper and Lily are still legally yours until a custody order is signed by a judge, and a judge has not signed anything yet. Maggie, are you sure? Wesley, I have practiced family law in Spokane County for 31 years. I am very sure. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., you and I are driving to a meeting in the Hangman Hills with a man named Stanford Pickering, who was Floyd Whitlock's estate attorney for 41 years. Floyd mentioned him on my deck. He said Stan was the only man in Spokane County he trusted to keep his mouth shut and his promises kept. Maggie wrote that down. Wesley, I think we are going to be all right. Cooper and Lily attend Meade Elementary in North Spokane. I parked in the pickup lane at 2:35 p.m. and waited. Cooper saw me first. He came out of the side door of the school carrying his backpack and his lunchbox, and he walked toward the truck the way an 11-year-old walks when he has been told something terrible the night before. He climbed into the cab. He did not say anything. Lily came out 2 minutes later. She is 8. She does not have her brother's restraint. She climbed into the back seat and burst into tears. Daddy. Hey, honey. Mom said you were leaving us. Lily, I am not leaving you. I am never leaving you. Mom and I are having some problems, but I am not leaving you. She said you signed the papers. I did, but I have a lawyer now, and the papers are going to change. Lily, look at me. I am not going anywhere. Do you understand me? She was crying too hard to answer. I drove to the old spaghetti factory on Riverside, and we sat in a corner booth. I ordered the kids' meals. Lily got pasta with butter. Cooper got pizza. I got coffee because I could not eat. Cooper finally spoke after the food came. Dad, is Mom okay? What do you mean? She's not the same person. She didn't used to be like this. Last week she yelled at me for putting my cup on the granite without a coaster, and she cried. About the coaster, Dad. She cried about a coaster. That is not normal. Cooper, I want to live with you, Dad. Lily does too. Mom said you'd never be allowed. I looked at my son. He was 11 years old. His face was the face of a child who had been forced, in a single 24-hour period, to become someone older than he was. Cooper, I am going to fight for you, both of you. I cannot promise you what the judge is going to decide, but I can promise you that I am going to fight as hard as I have ever fought for anything in my life. And I can promise you that whatever happens, I am going to be your father every single day for the rest of mine. Do you believe me? Yes. Lily, do you believe me? Yes, Daddy. Then eat your pasta. She ate her pasta. Cooper ate his pizza. I drank my coffee. I dropped them off at the house at 4:45 p.m. Adrienne's car was not there. I walked the kids to the front door. I told them I loved them. Cooper hugged me. Lily clung to my leg for 30 seconds before she let go. I drove away. I drove straight to my apartment, a furnished month-to-month I had rented at 11 a.m. that morning at a complex on Mission Avenue near Gonzaga University. I sat in that apartment that night with the lights off. I thought about Floyd Whitlock. I thought about a man I had met at a wedding in 2012 who had shaken my hand and told me to take care of his niece. I thought about a man who had sat on my back deck in August 2024 and warned me that something was coming. I fell asleep on a couch I did not own, in an apartment I had rented 6 hours earlier, holding the friendship bracelet my 8-year-old daughter had made me at summer camp 2 years before. Tomorrow was Thursday. Tomorrow I was meeting Stanford Pickering. Stanford Pickering's office was on the second floor of a converted Victorian house in the Hangman Hills neighborhood, 3 miles south of downtown Spokane. The house had been a law office continuously since 1934. He was 72 years old. He was thin. He had white hair and a thin white mustache. He had practiced estate and trust law in Spokane County for 46 years, and he had been Floyd Whitlock's personal attorney for 41 of them. He poured Maggie and me coffee. Mr. Hargrove, your wife's uncle, my client of 41 years, told me about you in the spring of 2024. He told me he had met you exactly one time in your life, at a wedding in 2012. He told me he had spent 6 seconds looking at you at that wedding and had decided you were a man with both feet on the ground. He told me on May 16, 2025, that he intended to make significant changes to his estate plan, and that those changes were prompted by what he described as the loss of his niece's character. Mr. Pickering, Maggie said, walk us through it. Stan Pickering opened a folder. Floyd Whitlock's net estate at the time of his death was $14.7 million. Until May of 2025, his will and trust documents named 4 beneficiaries. His sister June was to receive a $1 million cash bequest. Adrienne and her brother Dean were to receive equal shares of the remainder. A small bequest of $50,000 was to go to the Spokane Humane Society. He drafted it in 2015 and updated it minimally for 10 years. And after May 2025? In May 2025, Floyd called me to this office and asked me to draft an entirely new trust. He had decided that he no longer trusted his niece Adrienne with money. He had also decided that his nephew Dean was, in his words, a parasite who had been waiting 20 years for him to die. How did he restructure it? The new trust established a discretionary distribution structure with myself as trustee. Adrian Whitlock Hargrove, your wife, became the primary beneficiary, but the distributions are subject to a series of conditions. Floyd was very explicit about the conditions. He drafted some of the language himself. What conditions? Pickering opened the trust document. There are 7 conditions, Mr. Hargrove. I will summarize the 4 that are relevant. 1. The beneficiary shall not use trust funds, directly or indirectly, to deprive any minor child of meaningful relationship with both biological parents. 2. The beneficiary shall not use trust funds to fund litigation seeking sole custody of any minor child unless such litigation is supported by a finding of abuse or unfitness by a competent court. 3. The beneficiary shall maintain documented evidence of cooperation with the other biological parent in matters of child welfare. 4. Violation of any of the foregoing shall result in immediate forfeiture of the beneficiary's interest, with assets to be redirected to a charitable trust to be administered by the trustee. He set the document down. Mr. Hargrove, as of yesterday afternoon, when my office received notice from Mr. Hollis Crane that your wife had filed for divorce and was seeking sole custody, your wife is in violation of conditions 1, 2, and 3. I did not say anything. Maggie said quietly, Stan, has she received any distribution yet? She has received an initial distribution of $1.5 million, which was wired to her account on November 15th. That distribution was made before I had visibility into her actions regarding the marriage and the children. And the remaining $13.2 million has not been distributed. It is held in the trust account at Washington Trust Bank, where I am the sole authorized signatory pending verification of conditions. Can she challenge the trust? She can attempt to. She would lose. The document is airtight. There is a video recording of every meeting, in which Floyd explains his reasoning on the record. There are sworn affidavits from his physician confirming his cognitive capacity. There are independent witnesses to every signature. And the $1.5 million already distributed. Subject to clawback. If the trust forfeiture is triggered, all prior distributions become recoverable as a matter of trust law. I sat in that converted Victorian, in a chair that had been built before I was born, and I understood that Floyd Whitlock, a man I had met exactly twice in my life, had built me a weapon. Mr. Pickering, why did Floyd do this? The old lawyer looked at me for a long moment. Mr. Hargrove, Floyd told me, the last time we met before his death, that he had spent his entire life watching his sister June raise 2 children who never quite became the people June hoped they would become. He told me Adrian had married a man, meaning you, who he believed was the best thing that had ever happened to her. He told me he had watched her, over the last 3 years of his life, begin to resent the very man who had saved her from herself. He told me he was afraid of what she would do with money, and he told me he wanted to make sure that whatever she did, his money would not be the weapon she used to do it. Pickering closed the folder. He told me, Mr. Hargrove, that you were a working man, that working men deserved working men's protections, and that he was going to make sure his niece could not use his timber money to take working men's children away from working men's homes. I did not know what to say. Maggie said, Stan, will you testify in family court? I have been waiting for someone to ask. Maggie filed a counter-petition for primary custody on December 12th. She filed a motion to disclose all trust documents on December 16th. She filed a subpoena for Stan Pickering on December 18th. She filed a request for a guardian ad litem to interview both children on December 19th. Hollis Crane pushed back hard. He filed motions to quash. He filed motions for protective orders. He sent Maggie a letter that called my counter-petition a harassment tactic by a working-class husband desperate to extract financial concessions from a wife who has come into independent wealth. Maggie kept the letter in a folder. She told me on the phone, Wesley, Hollis Crane just called you working class on official letterhead. I'm going to make him eat that letter in court in February. In the meantime, my custody schedule with the kids was renegotiated to a temporary 50-50 arrangement. Cooper and Lily came to the apartment on Mission Avenue every other Sunday night and stayed until the following Sunday night. I bought a second-hand bunk bed for Lily's room. I bought Cooper a desk for his homework. Christmas morning was hard. The kids were with Adrienne under the temporary order. I drove to Coeur d'Alene to spend the morning with my parents. The kids called me at 7:15 p.m. on FaceTime. Cooper had gotten a Lego set he had been wanting for 2 years. Lily had gotten a stuffed otter she had named Mr. Fitzgerald. Both of them looked tired in a way that 8-year-olds and 11-year-olds should not look on Christmas night. In late January, Owen Driscoll called me. Owen was a long-haul driver who had been with Hargrove Freight Solutions since 2017. He was 48 years old. He had known my father for 40 years and had been my friend since I started in trucking. "Wes, I need to tell you something. I saw your wife at the Sundance Steakhouse in Liberty Lake about 2 months ago, late September. She was at a corner table with 2 men. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I figured it was business, but after what's been happening, I started thinking about it." "Owen, who were the men?" "One of them was older, maybe 50, suit, lawyer-looking. The other one was younger, mid-40s. I recognized him. It was her brother, Dean Whitlock." "Owen, are you sure?" "Wes, I've sold cars to Dean Whitlock. I bought my mother's Camry from his dealership in 2020, I'm sure." "Did you take any photos?" "I took 2. I didn't know why at the time. I just had a feeling." I drove to a Denny's in Spokane Valley 2 days later and met Owen for breakfast. He showed me the photos. The first photo was wide. 3 people at a corner table. Adrienne in profile, a glass of wine in front of her. Hollis Crane in a charcoal suit. Dean Whitlock with his back to the camera but unmistakable in his Carhartt jacket. The second photo was a closer angle. Hollis was sliding a folder across to Adrienne, and Adrienne was smiling. The date stamp read September 24th, 2025. Floyd Whitlock had still been alive on September 24th, 2025. He would not die for another 6 weeks. Adrienne had been meeting with a divorce attorney and her brother, planning the dismantling of her marriage, 6 weeks before her uncle was even dead. I sent the photos to Maggie. She called me back 45 minutes later. "Wesley, this is a problem for them." "How big a problem?" "Big enough." In late January, I went to see June Whitlock. June was 67 years old. She lived in a small ranch house in Spokane Valley that she had bought with her husband Marvin in 1986. Marvin had died in 2004. I drove to her house on a Saturday morning in late January with Cooper and Lily in the back seat. June opened the door before I knocked. "Wesley, come in. Tell the kids to come in too. I have hot chocolate." We came in. June set the kids up at the kitchen table with a coloring book. She pulled me into the front room. "Wesley, I have known what my daughter is for 39 years. I have known it since she was 3, and she would lie to my face about whether she had eaten the cookie I had told her not to eat. I have known what my daughter is, Wesley, and I have spent 39 years hoping that one day she would become someone I could be proud of." I did not interrupt. "When she met you, I thought it had finally happened. You were a good man. You loved her. I told my brother Floyd, the first Christmas after the wedding, that I thought Adrienne had found a man who was going to make her better. Floyd said to me, 'June, men don't make women better. Women decide to be better. And I am not sure your daughter has decided yet.' He was right. He was right. He was always right about her. And in 2024, when he visited you in Spokane, he sat on my couch the night before he flew home, and he said to me, 'June, your daughter is going to do something terrible when I die. I am going to make sure she cannot do it with my money.' I sat with that." June reached across the coffee table and took my hand. "Wesley, I want to tell you 2 more things. The first is that I knew what was in Floyd's trust before he died. He told me. He had me sign as a witness on one of the meetings. I did not tell Adrienne. I did not tell Dean. I let her walk into this thinking she had won. June. The second is that she has been spending money she does not have. She put a deposit down on a house in Carlsbad, California, 3 weeks ago. $600,000 against the inheritance she does not yet have access to. Dean co-signed the deposit documents. She has been telling people in the family that she is moving the children to California in March. Wesley, she does not have the money. The bulk of the trust is locked up under Stan Pickering's signature. She has the $1.5 million from the initial distribution, and that is all she has. June, why are you telling me this? She squeezed my hand. Because she is my daughter, Wesley, and I love her. But Cooper and Lily are my grandchildren, and I love them more. And my brother trusted you, and Floyd was a better judge of people than I was for 40 years. I called Maggie that night. I told her what June had said. Maggie was quiet for about 10 seconds. Then she said very evenly, Wesley, Adrienne just dug her own grave a little deeper. She has been spending against the trust without authorization. That is going to come out at the hearing, and it is going to be devastating. The custody hearing was held on February 11, 2026, in Spokane County Family Court, before Judge Eleanor Pruitt. Judge Pruitt was 64 years old. She had been on the family court bench for 19 years. She had a reputation for cutting through theatrics and getting to the truth of who was actually going to take care of the children. Hollis Crane went first. He stood up at the petitioner's table in a charcoal suit. He delivered a 38-minute opening statement about my unfitness as a primary parent. He talked about the freight business. He talked about the hours I worked. He talked about the trips I had made to Stockton and Boise. He talked about the small 2-bedroom apartment I had been renting on Mission Avenue. He compared it unfavorably to the 4-bedroom house in North Spokane that Adrienne had been living in. He did not mention the trust. He did not mention Floyd. He did not mention Stan Pickering. He did not mention the photographs Owen Driscoll had taken in September. He did not mention the deposit on the house in Carlsbad. When he sat down at 10:42 a.m., he looked confident. Adrienne, beside him, looked confident. Maggie stood up. She did not give an opening statement. She said, Your Honor, the respondent has 3 pieces of evidence to present before opening statements. With the court's permission, we would like to present them in sequence and then offer our opening based on the court's evaluation of the evidence. Judge Pruitt looked at Hollis Crane. Counselor? Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Granted. Ms. Holcomb, proceed. Maggie called Stanford Pickering as her first witness. Stan Pickering took the stand. He was sworn in. He testified for 42 minutes about Floyd Whitlock's trust, about the conditions, about the morality clause, about the conversations he had recorded with Floyd between May and August of 2025, about Floyd's cognitive capacity, about the witnesses to the signing. Hollis Crane's face changed about 15 minutes into Stan's testimony. Adrienne's face changed about 20 minutes into it. By the time Stan finished, the entire petitioner's table had gone pale. Maggie called her second piece of evidence, the photographs from Owen Driscoll's phone, dated September 24, 2025, showing Adrienne, Hollis Crane, and Dean Whitlock at the Sundance Steakhouse in Liberty Lake, 6 weeks before Floyd's death, planning the dissolution of my marriage. Judge Pruitt looked at the photographs for a long time. Maggie called her third piece of evidence, a letter, written in Cooper's careful 11-year-old handwriting, requesting in his own words to live primarily with his father, with the support of his 8-year-old sister Lily. The letter had been delivered to the court 2 weeks earlier, after a private interview between the children and the guardian ad litem. Judge Pruitt read the letter twice. She looked up. Mr. Crane, Mrs. Hargrove, may I see counsel at the bench? Hollis Crane and Adrienne walked to the bench. Judge Pruitt leaned forward. She spoke quietly, but the courtroom was small enough that I could hear her clearly from the respondent's table. Mr. Crane, did you know about the trust conditions when you filed this petition? Your Honor, I was aware of the trust generally. Did you know about the conditions? I was aware that there were certain provisions, but my client represented to me that she was the sole and unconditional beneficiary. Mr. Crane, did you read the trust document before filing for sole custody on behalf of your client? No, Your Honor. The judge turned her head. Mrs. Hargrove. Adrienne had gone the color of paper. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Hargrove, were you aware of the conditions in your uncle's trust at the time you filed for sole custody? I was aware that there were some restrictions, but I did not think they applied to. Yes or no, Mrs. Hargrove? A long pause. Yes. And were you aware that filing for sole custody, using attorneys retained with funds you anticipated receiving from this trust, would constitute a violation of the conditions. Adrienne did not answer. Hollis Crane beside her said quietly, in a voice I could just barely hear from 12 feet away, the 5 words that ended the case. The trust requires shared custody. Adrienne turned to look at him. For 1 full second she did not move. Then she screamed. It was not a word, it was a sound. The sound of a woman who had spent 14 months building a plan and had just watched the plan dissolve in front of her in the time it took to whisper a single sentence. Judge Pruitt rapped her gavel once. "Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Hargrove to the hallway. Mrs. Hargrove, you will collect yourself. We will reconvene in 15 minutes. The bailiff escorted Adrienne out of the courtroom. Hollis Crane stood at the bench, looking like a man who was watching his career evaporate in real time. Judge Pruitt looked at me. "Mr. Hargrove, would you and your counsel approach the bench?" Maggie and I walked up. Judge Pruitt closed the folder in front of her. "Mr. Hargrove, we are going to take a brief recess. When we resume, I am going to set aside the original divorce petition and direct the parties to submit revised filings. I expect to award you primary custody of both minor children. I expect to require Mrs. Hargrove to comply with the conditions of her uncle's trust. I expect Mr. Crane to be quite occupied in the coming weeks with the disciplinary review I will be referring to the Washington State Bar." She looked at Maggie. "Miss Holcomb, excellent presentation." She looked at me. "Mr. Hargrove, your son writes a hell of a letter for an 11-year-old. She rapped the gavel. "Court is in recess until 11 a.m. I walked out of that courtroom holding Maggie's arm because my legs were not entirely working. In the hallway, Adrienne was sitting on a bench against the wall. She was crying. Hollis Crane was nowhere in sight. I walked past my wife without speaking. I walked out into the cold February sunlight on Broadway Avenue in downtown Spokane, and I stood on the courthouse steps and I called my father. "Pop. Wesley. It's done. We won." "Boy." "Yes, Pop." Floyd Whitlock just rolled over in his grave and laughed. It is now mid-April, a little over 4 months since the phone call that ended my marriage came on a Tuesday morning in December. The court entered its final orders on March 14th. I have primary custody of Cooper and Lily. They live with me Sunday night through Friday afternoon. They spend Friday night through Sunday afternoon with their mother, with the conditions structured under Judge Pruitt's supervision and Stan Pickering's trust oversight. Adrienne is no longer the unconditional beneficiary of Floyd's trust. She receives a monthly distribution of $12,000, contingent on her compliance with the custody arrangement and her active support of the children's relationship with me. The bulk of the trust, $13.2 million, remains in Stan's hands and will be distributed only if and when Cooper and Lily reach adulthood with their relationship with me intact. If she breaches the arrangement, the entire trust reverts to a charitable foundation Floyd named in his original documents, the Spokane Working Families Foundation, which provides scholarships to children of long-haul truckers in eastern Washington and northern Idaho. Yes, Floyd named it that on purpose. Hollis Crane is currently under disciplinary review by the Washington State Bar Association. He has reduced his caseload to the 4 matters he was already representing as of February 11th. He is not taking new clients. The Spokesman Review ran an article about Judge Pruitt's referral on February 27th. The article quoted Maggie Holcomb. It did not quote Mr. Crane. Dean Whitlock has been formally cut out of the trust. Stan Pickering exercised a discretionary clause Floyd had built into the document specifically to allow exclusion of beneficiaries who had attempted to defraud the trust. June Whitlock has not spoken to Adrienne in 3 months. She visits Cooper and Lily at my house every other Sunday for dinner. Adrienne has moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in North Spokane. She did not move to California. She returned the deposit on the house in Carlsbad, having lost her earnest money. She has the kids on weekends. Cooper turns 12 in July. He is taller than I was at his age. He wants to play middle school football in the fall. Lily turns 9 in August. She has named a small stuffed otter Mr. Fitzgerald, and she carries him everywhere. And when Mr. Fitzgerald lost an eye in March, I drove 40 minutes to a Build-A-Bear in the Northtown Mall to have it repaired. I bought a 4-bedroom house in North Spokane 2 weeks ago. Same school district as the old one. The kids will not have to switch schools again. Tomas has been at my new house every Saturday since I closed on it. Hannah brings dinner. Lily has informed me that Tomas is not her uncle, but a bonus dad, and I have not corrected her because Tomas cried when she said it, and there are some moments you don't ruin with technicalities. My father drives over from Coeur d'Alene every other Sunday. He helped me install a basketball hoop in the driveway last weekend. Cooper made his first three-pointer 30 minutes after my dad left. I drove to Floyd Whitlock's grave at Fairmount Memorial Park on the third Saturday in March. It was a clear day. I brought a bottle of bourbon, the same brand he had brought to my house in August 2024, and I poured a small amount of it into the grass at the base of his headstone. I said the only thing I had come to say. Floyd, I met you twice. You looked at me for 6 seconds at a wedding in 2012. You sat with me on a back deck for 45 minutes in August 2024. That is the entire history of our relationship in this life. And you saved my children. I do not know why you decided to put your thumb on the scale for me. I will never know. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you decided I was. Thank you. From me, and from Cooper, and from Lily, and from every working man's child who is going to get a scholarship from your foundation for as long as that money exists. I poured the rest of the bourbon at the foot of the stone. I walked back to my truck. I drove home. Cooper had finished his homework. Lily was reading a book about a girl who befriends a fox. Tomas was burning hot dogs in the backyard. My father was on his way over with a bag of nails and a level because he had decided the basketball hoop was not perfectly plumb. That is my life now. It is a good life. It is the life that Floyd Whitlock saw, in some way I cannot explain, 13 years before he had any reason to believe it would need defending. So let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone you loved become someone you didn't recognize? Have you ever been told by the person who promised to stand beside you that you were disposable? Have you ever had to look at your own children and tell them you were going to fight for them when you were not entirely sure in that moment that you knew how? I'm going to be honest. The night Adrian handed me those papers, I did not know how. I drove to my best friend's house with no plan. I drove to my father's porch with no plan. I rented an apartment with no plan. I walked into Maggie Holcomb's office with no plan. What I had, and this is the only thing I had, was a single 45-minute conversation on a back deck in August 2024 with a 78-year-old man who looked at me for 6 seconds at a wedding in 2012 and decided, without telling me, that I was worth protecting. I did not earn that. I did not deserve it. I was just a man who showed up at a wedding 13 years ago wearing a borrowed tie and married a woman who was about to become someone else. But Floyd Whitlock decided I was worth protecting anyway. Sometimes the people who save your life are the people you barely know. Sometimes they are watching you when you do not know you are being watched. Sometimes they are dead before you understand what they did. If you have ever been underestimated by your spouse, by your in-laws, by the people who promised to love you, and then quietly decided you were a temporary inconvenience, I want to hear from you. If you have ever been the person who got the phone call, the packet of papers, the moment when the floor moved out from under you and you understood, for the first time, what kind of person you had married. Tell me what you did. Tell me how you stood up. Tell me who your Floyd was, if you were lucky enough to have one. I will read every comment. If this story moved you, pass it on. Send it to the man at your church who has been quiet lately. Send it to your brother. Send it to anyone who has been told they were disposable, because they are not. Subscribe to this channel for more stories. I will see you next time.